Well, hello, that's me again. Today is May 13th, Monday. Happy Monday. And I'm pretty sure that many people wait from me all kinds of the assessments regarding the actually new cabinet or new government of Russia. And the only thing which I can tell you up front, it's even better than it was before. Why? I will explain a little bit more, but let's start first with the issue which you know what, how to put it politely, we are dealing with the imbeciles on several levels, strategic levels in NATO, including the United States. And since we all know that Sergei Lavrov, which is indispensable person really, he is something of a, I don't know, stalwart or towering figure, whatever you can call him. He retained obviously his position. He is indispensable. And although we no, there are some really good Russian diplomats there, like Mr. Nebenzia or Mr. Rybkov, and they can certainly take his place. But I mean, theoretically, there is nothing better than nobody better than Mr. Lavrov. So Mr. Lavrov, who is now again confirmed as the foreign minister, says this. And it's pretty straightforward, it's blunt, and he talks about that Russia is ready to fight the West on the battlefield, Lavrov said today, and he says this is their right. If they want to fight to be on the battlefield, they will be on the battlefield, the diplomat said. And this pretty much explains basically what is going on in terms of Russia preparing for the fight with obviously combined West. And just to demonstrate to you that you cannot take combined West seriously militarily, because obviously the fundamental thing, which is of course development of the strategy, is developed by people like this nincompoop. He is the Mr. Bauer. As you can see yourself, I deliberately underlined here the sources where this kind of garbage goes through. It's Ukrainskaya Pravda, which is of course the propaganda outlet of Kiev regime. And here we have Mr. Top NATO General comments. Oh, he's not general actually, he's an admiral on Russian advance. And of course we're talking about Russian advance in Kharkov, of which we will talk now. Progress limited, Ukraine can still win. Here's the guy, he commanded obviously the I remember I did the review of his CV. He commanded the destroyer in the Royal Dutch Navy, and then he graduated some kind of the madrasa of the General Staff, NATO, whatever the hell they prepare the people there. And so Admiral Rob Bauer, chair of the NATO Military Committee, believes that despite the advance of Russian forces on the battlefield, Ukraine can still win the war, admitting that the pause in support has affected events on the front line. So the guy is full of you know what kind of substance. I don't think so he is a really literate officer, because NATO was parading itself for the last I don't know, year and a half at least, with primarily people who have no clue, and they have been basically disgracing themselves as military professionals. Forget about honor, they don't have honor. And if you want to know what they are good at, here we can take a look at situation with Belgorod. This is what Belgorod looks like yesterday after the one of the it's not HIMARS, it's the Olha missile, which was actually shot down, but you can see that there is a video there. It fell on the parking lot of the apartment complex. The whole part of the apartment complex fell and buried. Now they say 14 people killed and many are wounded. This is the modus operandi of NATO. And these are their stooges, and this is what they do, because they are absolutely powerless, and they had their situation in Kharkov axis really bad for them, and we will discuss this in a second. But this is basically what they teach in NATO academies. Kill civilians, you know, because obviously what they know about war is absolutely useless. And again, you cannot have it really seriously studied when practically all of your military history studying from World War II is actually confabulated. And so obviously they don't study Soviet or Red Army history. And so what can I say? What's left? Absolutely, the impotent rage, and guess what? Killing Russian civilians. There you go. And again, you can see the video of the attack on Belgorod. You can see yourself that it wasn't. These were actually the remnants of the missile, which have been shut down, but they exploded not in the apartment complex, but near it, and they detonated. And you see what had happened with one of those pieces or sections of the apartment complex. So now, if that hasn't been enough, we have the situation with obviously at Kharkov, and here I want to give you how to put it politely, some insight from my friends, and this is from Marat Khairulin. Here's his the maps here. Actually, the maps which are drawn by the Mr. Popov, a former military professional, and you can see yourself that for today, this 13th of May, there is a lot of movement on the part of the grouping North. It's not army group; it's operational grouping. And yeah, it's pretty much advancing, and this is precisely what was in plans to start moving, and this, so to speak, sanitary cordon to secure both Belgorod, which suffers enough, and Kursk from attacks which are nothing more than the terrorist acts. So as you can see yourself, the situation is pretty bad there, and actually there is a this movement. This is, as you can see yourself today, this is TASS reported, and the armed forces of Ukraine transferred reserve units to the Kharkov direction. Well, that's obviously also the part of the plan, because right now Russia has 6 operational groupings, and each of them can start any kind of operations. This time it was decided that the North will go, and as you can see yourself, reserve units of the armed forces of Ukraine have been deployed to the Kharkov direction. This was reported by the Department of Strategic Communications of the Armed Forces of Ukraine in its Telegram channel. This is a classic, so to speak, pendulum, and Russians will continue to do this. They are not really in rush, but in this case, the attack or assault from the north was precipitated by incessant attempts to, kill as many civilians in Belgorod and surrounding areas by armed forces of Ukraine. And of course, now is the question if, which there were some indications that some of it attacks have been done with the use of the Storm Shadow Scalp missiles that have been shot down. But if it is confirmed, they, London should expect real serious consequences. So we don't know this yet, but it certainly could be the case. Now, if that attack, this assault wasn't enough, and which obviously stretches all those reserves of the armed forces of Ukraine, we have the situation with the appointment of Mr. Belousov to the position of the defense minister. Now, let me explain what many people do not understand. Mr. Shoigu have been actually promoted. He is now the Secretary of Security Council of Russian Federation, and this is the higher position than the Federal Ministry, which is, of course, Ministry of Defense. Moreover, Mr. Shoigu not just retained, he received the new sector of responsibility, which is the military technical cooperation, which is, of course, has a lot to do with the trade in weapons. So we have this situation. And here is what Mr. Peskov talks about Mr. Belousov. Conflicts are won by those who are open to innovation, President spokesman Dmitry Peskov said. Peskov is not articulate. He is a very reserved guy. He tries not to say too much because sometimes he says that. But a proposal by Russian President Vladimir Putin to replace Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu is aimed at more deeply integrating the defense industrial base with the national economy, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov has said. This is correct. But it's very general. People have to have some kind of the explanation of why, for example, this matters and what does it mean, even the military-industrial complex and integration with the overall economy. And here I want to give you the read out by my good friend Marat Khairulin, and this is what he talks about in terms of appointment of Mr. Belousov. Here is his post today about Belousov and the sore point, professional reaction to the arrival of the new Minister of Defense. And here's Marat, who obviously has his own very serious sources within military and civilian political top. Here's what he says. Serdyukov, he gives you a little bit of the narration of the story, or history if you wish. Serdyukov's task was to break the rotten Soviet army system infested with military clans through thoroughly corrupt and snobbishly closed. He stupidly worked as a lumberjack who cut a clearing, which is true, it's correct. So, Kuzhigedovich, which is Sergei Kuzhigedovich Shoigu, is a manager who knows how to work with complex teams and create something new on the ashes. The creation of the Ministry of Emergency Situations is an example of this. He planted a new forest on the site of the forest burned and chopped down by Serdyukov. A new army has been created on strong positive tradition, and the flywheel of this complex mechanism has been launched. The army entered the period of the World War that flared up again, which is absolutely correct. We are in the World War III. It just proceeds in a little bit different scenario, and which would last for more than 1 year. And during this period, the military-industrial complex and the defense economy came to the fore as independent leading element. And the country's defense structure is clearly formed in two directions, power and economic. And here is what is crucial, what many people do not understand, that Shoigu he wasn't operational leader. Read my lips, I will repeat it again. The command and control of the armed forces of Ukraine, of Russia, are conducted by the General Staff. Period. This is the main organ of the command and control of the all armed forces of Russian Federation. And here it is. The Ministry of Defense now is not the army now. The army is the General Staff. The Ministry of Defense is the army plus military economy and industry. The purely military component in the Ministry of Defense is now dealt with by the General Staff. And General Staff alone, they are main military strategists in Russia. Period. There's nobody else. And so we know that Valery Gerasimov stays as pretty much most of the general staff. There's no reason to basically do anything there, because they're doing their job and extremely well. And so here's what Marat says. He knows about Belousov a lot. And the quiet, non-public Belousov is a person who, working as deputy prime minister together with the central bank, created the iceberg against which the Titanic of Western sanctions crashed. This is a man who is privy to the invisible mechanism of economic ties and levers, who pulled the country out of the most decisive moment and gave it an impetus for development, which is absolutely true. I am on record. I repeated it so many times that, and you can read it in my blog, that Mr. Mishustin, who stays as prime minister, is outstanding manager. He is probably the best economic manager obviously in 21st century, no doubt about it, but he could be compared to the greatest who ever been there. And obviously he is a manager, he is the guy who runs the economy, but the guy who developed those strategies, the brain behind this, which is now astounding economic development of Russia, is Mr. Belousov. So, I'll give you an example. If you remember a little bit how it worked in the United States, well, it was kind of sufficient enough. Remember this fairy tales of the Star Wars, right? So obviously it was complete scientific BS, and it was the premise on which Gorbachev started to sell the country out to the left and to the right. But the truth is, obviously, generally, I'm not a very high opinion about American air or anti-ballistic defense, but what was important actually was that in the deep recesses of this fairy tale, tale, pardon me, my this fairy tale was one thing which we're dealing right now, this very moment. It's called internet. And this was development, obviously, of high level of the processing power of the microchips. So that's immediately have been actually promoted, so to speak, or procured into the civilian areas. And we have this situation with the development of the microprocessors and obviously the internet. That was the side effect, so to speak, of this whole situation. So what we have here now, pretty much the same situation, because obviously Russian Defense Ministry and Russian armed forces, they have so much innovative products, ranging not only from the weapons, and we already know some of those weapons are absolute, I mean, just paradigm changing or paradigm shifting weapons such as hypersonics and new detection methods and air defense and eccentric warfare. So this thing needs to be also incorporated and developed in its civilian variants, so to speak. And Mr. Belousov is the man for the job. The same as he was speaking today openly about the fact that he also will improve, already not bad, but he will improve dramatically, which will happen the social social security, so to speak, and social services for the armed forces, and that will affect obviously the Russian overall structure of the such areas as, for example, healthcare, including the new developments in the all kinds of the treating things. You do not forget, for example, when did we get our antibiotics? Antibiotics have been the result of the World War I, actually, and in World War II they kind of bloomed into the fundamental medicine which helped to treat wounds and prevent the infections. So many things in terms of the field medicine today are applicable, especially the treating on some serious traumas and illnesses, including psychological or psychiatric illnesses. They are gonna be implemented or developed into the civilian sector. So how to put it politely, we have so much happening there that you have to have a real strategist who knows what to do with those things which we're gonna be getting and already getting in terms of the fundamental development, fundamental science, which goes into the development of the brand new weapon systems, but also has the huge potential for the dual use. And again, as I already stated, just to give you example, which is of course kind of self-evident, if you take a look at the intensity of Russians launching all kinds of these satellites and rockets recently, and developing, for example, the now reliable missiles such as Angara 5, heavy missile, rocket rather, and what do you have? You have suddenly they're blooming, so to speak, or expanding dramatically of the Russian, for example, satellite constellation, which of course goes under the auspices of the sphere. It's called Sfera, and guess what? It is obviously working in the interest of the Russian Defense Ministry, but also has an immense number of the civilian applications. So, and this is just to give you some, so to speak, view of this. And Marat actually describes the role of Belousov here perfectly. So, and I have nothing add to it to here. So, and then we go to the, how to put it politely, after we kind of discuss things with what is going on in terms of the situation on the front for armed forces of Ukraine and then NATO curators. Here we have this main so-called pseudo-intellectual, how to put it politely, foreign affairs. And here we have this Jack Waitling. I will explain who Jack Waitling is. Waitling is because I did his CV review also prior. But look at this. The guy has a plan. He has an immensely important plan. Look at this. American aid alone won't save Ukraine. To survive, Kyiv must build new brigades and force Moscow to negotiate. outstanding plan. I don't know how they, teach all those strategies and all that, but this is the best plan I ever saw in my life. I don't know how I didn't come up with this thing, because it's so easy. Let's create more brigades and force Moscow to negotiate. It's outstanding strategy. So, and this is the level, basically, of the way of the strategic planning, so to speak. And if you take a look at in this, you can see yourself who Jack Waitling is, or Waitling, whatever. He's doctor, no less, and he's senior research fellow for land warfare at the Royal United Service Institute, RUSI, London. Jack works closely with British military on the development of concepts of operation, assessments of future operational environment, and conducts operational analysis of contemporary conflicts. Originally a journalist, okay. So does he have the fundamental physics, mathematics background and theory of operations background to conduct this operational analysis? I don't think so, but yet here it is. He is, employed by the RUSI, or Royal United Services Institute. But if that hasn't been enough, we have now lamentations from this. And here we have this, whatever those people, foreign policy. It's foreign policy is a neocon magazine. They just hate Russian gods. But look at this. Washington current approach is a strategic cop out and risks making another forever war. That's what those guys write in foreign policy. What does America want in Ukraine? Well, what does America want in Ukraine? We don't know, because America doesn't know what it wants, because there was one plan, which of course written in the kindergarten by people who are absolutely incompetent in military field, but here it is. And here they say that accordingly, U.S. leaders should encourage and sensitivize Ukraine to prioritize defense over offense, a process that is already beginning. The last 2 years have demonstrated the ability of defenders to hold off motivated and more numerous attackers. No, they didn't, but hey, whatever, the guys live in those, alternative universes, and this is the level of American elite. This is the level of American military, which doesn't understand what they're dealing with, except for some people, but you can see yourself the implosion, complete implosion of the intellectual level of the people who ran the United States into the ground. I'm not talking about Europeans, they are clowns. They literally are. All their political top leaders, their military are clowns, as this Admiral Bauer. So, okay. So, no less important, however, foreign policy says that the time has come to encourage negotiations between Ukraine and Russia if Ukraine forces buoyed by the new aid deliveries can stabilize the front line. Then the summer 2024 may prove to be a favorable negotiation window. So, yeah, these people literally, they live in the parallel universe where, like this dude, Waitling, who wants to create new brigades, but the latest information from the front is such that actually Azov Brigade, so-called, doesn't want to go to the front line. And Mr. Budanov, the guy, who is the chief terrorist of Ukraine, he already rushed to Kharkov. Because those guys don't want to go to the front line. Of course they don't want to. They have been mauled previously. Now, if they go to the front line on the Kharkov axis, they will be demolished completely. So, what can I say? So, he probably goes there and is going to do whatever he wants to do. Maybe decimate them just in case of, public execution. So, whatever. I don't know. So, anyhow, if that hasn't been enough, and we have another great American strategist. I'm being facetious, of course. Her name is, of course, Victoria Nuland, and she explains why U.S. didn't want Ukraine to talk to Russia. And here's the lady and her husband who have zero. They're uncultured hacks and Zionists, and so the fact that she speaks Russian doesn't make her any connoisseur of Russia. She's dumb as a stump. She's just driven by hate, as pretty much all neocons in the United States, being also utterly incompetent on the issues of the international relations and how the world works, and of course militarily. And so she says that Kiev's negotiation position has never been strong enough amid the conflict, she says, former. So, and she wants actually, to wait until it becomes stronger. Good luck. And again, you cannot explain for this, degree meals, products from whatever, Harvard, Georgetown, whatever, that their degrees, their knowledge is worthless pretty much, especially those who are coming out nowadays. Unless you get a good professor, but there are no good professors. When you look attentively at who comments and what they comment on and how they comment on from all those so-called institutions, be that Yale, Princeton, Georgetown, what have you, Brown, whatever, I believe Nuland graduated Brown. So people with degrees in, let's say, Russian history or Russian literature or in some kind of the international relations, they are utterly unprepared for the modern world. They do not understand what is happening. Many of them are fanatical Zionists or fanatical exceptionalists. And when you have fanaticism without capability, what do you have? At least Wehrmacht in 1941 could post a very impressive military record. Wehrmacht defeated actually all those, French, Belgians, what have you. They entered, Paris beautifully. And so you have those people who actually understood how the war operates, how, the Prussian general staff tradition and things of this nature. Now, what do you have in Pentagon today? The guys who lost every single freaking war? They know how to blow up civilian targets. They know how to defeat some backward third world, utterly incompetent army of Saddam. That's it. What do you expect from them? They do not understand even what is happening economically, politically, and culturally to the country. Especially that goes to the part of, not that they're not pretty much the same in many respects, Republicans and Democrats, but Democratic part of it, it's ridiculous. It's just one clown upon another. While here we have this situation. So this is the latest data and they show the change from the 22, pardon me. And as you can see yourself, Chinese exports to the following countries, groups of nations. Look attentively how China begins to detach itself, from the West. It will continue, obviously, the process will continue, but look at this. This is very important. Look at the green thing and the China's exports to Russia, plus 46.9% in 2023. Obviously, actually, if you don't know, China has a trade deficit with Russia. Russia provides more, especially in terms of energy, than China ships to Russia. But it is the dynamics which tells you everything you need to know about Mr. Z and, the relationship with Russia. And they will grow dramatically this year already. We know there is a dramatic growth. Another, I believe, so far, 40-something months to months growth, and that's pretty much going to be in the area of the $300 to $400 billion eventually. So, and that means what? It will be comparable to the whole trade off with EU or the United States. Not quite there yet, but it will be. And I will have to make an additional video about this. And so when you look at these dynamics and economic dynamics, and in fact, for Financial Times, well, they are London clowns. They're creeps, actually, most of them are. You can look it up. Their title is that she is very unsuccessful failure in Europe. I think so. It was triumphant, especially in terms of Serbia and Hungary for Z. It was a triumphant visit. So, but yeah, when you look attentively at the situation with the combined West, it is a completely in the disintegration mode. And most importantly, you cannot talk seriously to pretty much any of them in the very top, political military top. Those people are just absolutely brainwashed, and they have been exposed as complete nincompoops. And, well, what can I say? Russia continues to do what she's continuing to do, and this is really doesn't sit well for the combined West. And as Mr. Lavrov stated, they want to fight. Come on in. We're ready. Guess what? Where those 600,000 troops are standing in rear, waiting for what? They're waiting for NATO. And believe me, there will be no long fight, because once this fight starts, Russians can repeat Belgorod, but in London and obviously even the Washington. And this is not going to be attack on civilian targets, it's going to be attack on the decision centers, and nothing they can do to stop it. And there you go. That's what I wanted to tell you guys today. And as always, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel. And those who can afford, please support me on Patreon or buy me a coffee too. And hopefully by Wednesday, I will have my permanent teeth. So, and then I'm going to be falling out of my mouth. So, well, this is it for today, guys. Have a nice rest of your week. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.